Thanks to the supporters of channel member Length. Whatever happens, boys and girls, season 2 ends here today. We've got the semi-final of the Champions League and then hopefully the final of the Champions League. Failing that, we'll have the final of the FA Cup. Fingers crossed we win a Premier League in there somewhere as well. We might actually end this video with all 6 trophies, which would be really quite super duper. Hello and welcome to part 14 of my FM23 beta save with Chelsea. I'm Kev. Coming up on today's episode, we have the second leg of our Champions League semi-final against Bayern Munich. We are 2-0 up from the first leg. And like I say, we'll either then do the Champions League final, fingers crossed. Failing that, we'll have the FA Cup final against Liverpool, so we get those 2 matches in. So episode length isn't a spoiler. And hopefully we win the Champions League in there, the Premier League, sorry, in there somewhere as well. As you can see, Tammy Abraham is scoring like an absolute monster all of a sudden. 5 goals against Brighton. He really is coming good in the second half of this season. 12 goals from 4 starts for us. That'll do nicely. He is starting to start a few more games now. He's becoming the Tammy Abraham we all thought we were getting when we brought him in after having that slow start, being behind Calvert-Lewin in the pecking order. He's not behind Calvert-Lewin in the pecking order anymore. That's for sure. This is what the Premier League looks like. So 2 points clear with a game in hand. That should get wrapped up off camera relatively easily. So for now, all eyes on this Champions League semi-final against Bayern Munich. We are 2-0 up from the first leg, and this is the team we are putting out there for the second leg. We've got Mendy in goal, a back four of Cucurella, Akoli, Fofana and James, Bellingham and Camavinga in midfield, Musiala, Havertz and Pulisic then behind Tammy Abraham up front. This is... I would say this is probably the front 5 I had in mind when I made those summer signings. Realistically, probably Raheem Sterling in on the right ahead of Pulisic. But everyone else, that's how I kind of anticipated us being when we brought the players in. It's taken a long time to get here, but this was the plan at the start of the season. And finally, through different players taking different amounts of time to bed into the team, we have made it. What it does mean, of course, no room in there for Mason Mount, which is probably a big problem. Arguably, we could have started him on the right-hand side of midfield, but also no room for Kante and Jorginho, both of which we'll be looking to move on this summer, because remember, we are doing one more season regardless. That was always the plan. That's why we rushed through this season. We want to get one more season finished this week. We'll have a transfer window tomorrow where we'll try and move on the rest of the old men and see if there's any more wonder kids we can pick up. But then the rest of the week before Non-League to Legend starts on full release day on the 8th of November, the rest of the week is going to be all about this new style Champions League that kicks in season 3, which I've heard so much about, but I'm yet to experience, and we'll be focusing in properly on the new style Champions League for the rest of this week, regardless of how this Champions League turns out. Cucurella playing the ball forward to Kai Havertz, who is in behind, bursting out of the attacking midfield position, rather than as the main man up front for once, but it's still the same end result. It's a 34th goal of the season for Havertz, who is wanted by Manchester City and Paris Saint-Germain, the 2 big money clubs, both interested in him. I don't particularly want to sell him, but he does want to go to Paris Saint-Germain. And if we get offered a stupid amount of money, I could accept a world where we have Tammy Abraham up front, Musiala in behind him, and then Mount and Sterling find routes back into the team in the gaps that are left. Musiala against, of course, his former club, very nearly doubling our lead on the night. It's 3-0 on aggregate. We were very good in that first leg, and realistically, this should already be job done. I've just noticed Timo Werner is up front for Bayern Munich. He's moved around a lot in recent years, hasn't he? He went back to Leipzig when he left Chelsea this summer, just got in real life, didn't he? I guess he must have ended up at Bayern Munich after a decent season, back with Leipzig again. And here he is, the former Chelsea man, scoring a goal against us, although I think it is being disallowed for offside here. The linesman's flag is up. The referee is got his finger well and truly in his ear and hopefully about to disallow. He has disallowed Timo Werner's goal. I didn't notice him in the first leg. I mean, he didn't score either, so he may not have been playing in the first leg. But that would have been his 24th goal of the season. Suggests Werner has gone in there and formed quite the focal point of a very impressive-looking Bayern Munich front 4, with Werner ahead of Gnabry, Muller and Mane. It's quite a scary one, although to be fair, much older than ours. Bunch of old men. what they're doing with a bunch of old men. Abraham releases Musiala on the left. This is the guy they should have kept. We threw all the money at him for him, though. I guess they spent the Musiala money on Timo Werner, who's had the last laugh here. Pulisic playing it back to Akoli, and now Fofana and Akoli again. And can we do something fancy here? It's rare for Bellingham and Camavinga to play together in this midfield. I would like them to put on a show for us today. But Tammy Abraham is the one putting on the show and very nearly adding yet another goal to his recent tally. He is in sensational form at the moment. It's been quite fortuitous the way it's worked out with our two big English strikers we brought in the summer. Calvert-Lewin started the season absolutely on fire, and as soon as he stopped scoring, and Tammy Abraham got a proper chance, he's now been on fire. So we've had a free-scoring English striker all season long to complement Musiala and Havertz, who, to be fair, between them two, have over 60 goals. And Abraham and Calvert-Lewin must have over 40 between them. So as a four, over 100 goals between those four players. That'll do, won't it? We'll take that. Reece James, who is closing in on 30 assists for the season now, with an in-swinging corner, and it ends up with Tammy Abraham via Fofana. I suspect there's going to be an offside decision here, although to me it looked like it came off the Bayern Munich defender after Fofana, but I guess if you're giving the offside, well, there you go. See? Good eye. Good eye on Kev. Let's have a look to see if that is what happened. So Fofana, and then, it's Neuer, not the defender. So Fofana heads to Neuer, and although Abraham looked offside when Neuer got the touch, he wasn't offside from Fofana's initial header, which is the only one that really counts. Tammy Abraham scoring again. He's a goal machine. Musiala playing it over the top, looking for Tammy again. Can't find him this time. And now Havertz picking the ball up in midfield, trying to play Abraham in. Can't quite get there over the top of it. I think that's De Ligt. Obviously, there's some quite impressive defensive players they've got here at Bayern Munich. And it's, what is it, De Ligt and Upamecano, I think, in the back two. Quite good, aren't they? Probably the one area where... Oh, in fact, Upamecano's playing in midfield again. Why do they keep doing that? I noticed they did that last year. Does it... I mean, I think I've asked you this before. Let me know in the comments. Does Upamecano ever play in central midfield for Bayern Munich? He seems to do a lot in Football Manager. Right, Musiala trying to get the counter-attack up and running on this left-hand side. There is that man, Upamecano, coming in, making the challenge. And then a very risky ball back to Neuer that Abraham could well have intercepted, but he didn't seem quite alert to it. And now Havertz slots Musiala in. There is Tammy Abraham. And Neuer makes the save. And he is he's keeping the score respectable for Bayern at the moment. We have been absolutely all over them in that first half. 2-0 on aggregate. 2-0 on the night, 4-0 on aggregate, meaning it's almost certainly going to be a Champions League final in the second half of this episode, unless something goes spectacularly wrong. Pulisic gives the ball away, but Bellingham is there to follow up, and now charging down the right side, trying to slot Pulisic back in, and there's Tammy Abraham again. It's a 27th goal of the season for him. I have rarely seen goal-scoring form like that Tammy Abraham has shown in this second half of the season. I talked for so long in the first season of this save about how the dream was to bring Tammy back to Chelsea, and the amount of you who told me he wasn't going to be the player I thought he would be, and I believed you. We didn't start him at the start of the season. We kept faith with Havertz. We went for Calvert-Lewin because Tammy came in with a 3-star current ability, and I got scared and went and got Calvert-Lewin as well, and then favoured him over my boy Tammy. I never should have done it, because look what Tammy Abraham can do. Musiala's in now. It's 4-0 on the night. It's 6-0 on aggregate. It's easy peasy. We can probably start resting some players just to make sure we get this Premier League wrapped up. And remember as well, we've already won all 4 of the competitions we're in that have already been awarded. Is it 4? No, it's 3. We've already won the Community Shield, the Super Cup, and the Carabao Cup. We're in the FA Cup final. We're now in the Champions League final, and we're 2 points clear at the top of the Premier League with a game in hand. We could win all 6 competitions that we've entered this season. Is FM23 too easy? I know people have discussed it a little bit. I think it probably has always been relatively easy to go into a big club, spend a load of money and do quite well. Has it always been this easy? I think rather than it being a particularly easy game, I think this is something we discussed a little bit in the roundtable discussion that we did on Dr. Benji's channel last week. I don't know that it's necessarily that the game is too easy. I think it's that the game is very, very similar to last year. And we're in a situation where basically the stuff that worked last year is working this year. So narrow formations, high pressing, making sure your players are well rested between matches, keeping morale well managed, all that kind of stuff that worked last year is still working this year. So whereas normally when the new game comes out, there's that period of learning the tricks for the new game, if you like, we're kind of going into this start of the new game using what worked in the end game of FM22, and it's still working. So, I mean, do you call that easier? I mean, I guess you probably could make the argument that that does mean the game is easier. I would argue it's just another demonstration that maybe it's not as different as it could have been from last year's game. Conor Gallagher's going to come on for a rare appearance. He has struggled to get game time this year. I've tried to use him as much as I can because he was one of my favourite players last year, but we brought in 3 players who were better than him in his position in Bellingham, Camavinga and Musiala. The fact that he's still getting the nod ahead of Jorginho and Kante shows how good he is. And I think if we move them on this summer, which the plan is to do, Gallagher will move well up the pecking order again. But there is your confirmation that we have qualified for the Champions League final at Wembley. It's the last final of the current format of the Champions League. We just need to go and get that one, make it back-to-back Champions League wins, and then focus on the new style one next season. I'm going to go and win the FA Cup and the Premier League off camera, I think. Told you we're racing through this season. Then we'll be back for the Champions League final. 5 out of 6 complete, thanks to a lovely run of form. Premier League wrapped up relatively comfortably. Although, I'm wondering, is 80 points a lot? I don't really know what a standard... See, 97 points last year. Our 80 points would have only been enough to finish 4th last year. This has been a very strange Premier League season. We did still score 104 goals and only lost 4 times, but we drew a lot of matches. And if anyone else had been any good, we'd have had a problem. Manchester City, despite having Erling Haaland scoring a goal every game, they got Jason Wilcox managing them, which is an interesting one. We're just going to investigate this briefly. Manager history at Manchester City. So they had Pep Guardiola resigned. Oh, it's the FM22 thing. So Pep Guardiola resigned. Jurgen Klopp took over. Presumably he left Liverpool to take over. I bet Liverpool didn't sack him. Let's look on here. Yep. So Jurgen Klopp left Liverpool to manage Manchester City. Guardiola took over from him at Liverpool. Klopp has now been sacked. He was sacked back in March. So Jason Wilcox has been Manchester City manager for the last 3 months. And they've only just managed to cling on to 4th place with a total of 69 points, which last season wouldn't have been good enough. And that's with Erling Haaland, the machine, scoring goals for fun, as he has again. If they get a manager who can actually sort them out, they're going to be a problem, but clearly not this season. And then we beat Liverpool 2-0 in the FA Cup final as well. So that is 5 competitions from 6 done. Can we make it 6 from 6? Of course we can. We're facing Real Madrid, Champions League final. Is that who we played last year in the final? I feel like that might be who we played last year. It is Real Madrid versus Chelsea, 2nd year in a row. This time, Camavinga plays for us. This is our 11. We've got Mendy in goal. A back four of Cucurella, Akoli, Fofana and James. Bellingham at the base of the midfield. Kante and Camavinga ahead of him. I know you lot are going to want me to play those 2 the other way around. In real life, if I ever get the opportunity to manage them both, I probably will. In Football Manager, Camavinga is great at this centre mid on attacking role. He's actually the front runner to be the World Under-21 Player of the Year. I'm just going to leave him to do his thing as a centre midfielder on attack. Then Musiala on the left, Pulisic on the right, Havertz up front. It does mean for the 2nd year in a row, Mason Mount misses out on starting in the Champions League final, which the Chelsea fans are going to be fuming about. Tammy Abraham, despite his incredible run of form towards the end of the season, also missing out on the start. But he does. I mean, we've got a strong team putting out there to get the game up and running. We just need to not concede early on, and then we've got all that firepower to bring off the bench if it's needed later on in the match. Real Madrid have a very scary team, as we saw in the final last year. Their front 3 is problematic. Obviously, their midfield has been weakened ever so slightly by us taking Camavinga off them, but they've got plenty of depth, even beyond where he was. He wasn't exactly a nailed-on regular starter for them before, at least not in in real life. In game, he kind of was. But regardless, he's now with us, and we'd like to beat them. This is going to be probably, if we can get a decent fee for him, a final match for the club for N'Golo Kante. We're also going to be looking to move on Jorginho. Pedro Gonçalves is probably going to be moving on this summer because he's not happy about lack of game time. And Jorginho, did I mention Jorginho? He'll be done as well. So there's going to be quite a few players moving on this summer. So there's going to be plenty of business to do tomorrow. And I've got to figure out what and where to strengthen. I'm thinking we probably strengthen at the back this summer because I think that probably is the weak link in the team now. The fact we've got Tammy Abraham and Calvert-Lewin who can't get in the team, but we regularly start Chalobah, for example, although he's not starting in this game. I think probably the back four in general. Again, Cucurella starting in a Champions League final. I think we can probably do better than that. We can probably do better than Fofana and Akoli. And I think that's probably going to be the plan. Unless, of course, this guy leaves as well, who is wanted by Paris Saint-Germain, amongst others. So there could be a big sack of cash thrown at us for Kai Havertz. We'll definitely miss him, but not as much as we would have done before we got Abraham and Calvert-Lewin in. That goal has been disallowed, unfortunately. We have a look at it from the replay. I mean, okay, we'll allow it to be disallowed. He wasn't. It's just a smidgen offside. It's fine. Let me know down in the comments section what you would be looking to do transfer-wise this summer. Obviously, we are early enough still in this save, only 2 years ahead or a year and a half ahead of reality. So you'll have a very good idea of the kind of players you think we should bring in. I'm kind of quite flexible on playing it by ear as well and just bringing in players I'd quite like to have a look at in FM23. This next season is all about trying out this new Champions League for a few days before we get up and running with non-league to legend. So we're not necessarily looking to build a long-term super team. It's more a case of just bringing in the players I'd quite like to have a look at. So I know a few people have said bringing in Makoko up front could be interesting. We absolutely don't need him, but maybe it would be interesting to bring him in and see how he is in season 3. If there's any other players along those lines you'd like to see, let me know down in the comments section. Otherwise, I will just do what I normally do and probably spend about £300 million on players that I didn't need. There's an hour gone in this. It's still 0-0 so far. So much like last year's Champions League final, which means, similar to the model of last year's final, it's probably time to bring on Mason Mount. Musiala's picked up an injury, so Mount can come on for him. That's a pretty easy decision to make. Pulisic's also having a pretty poor game. So I think we're going to bring on Calvert-Lewin for him. And I'm also going to take off Camavinga. And what I'm going to do is put Havertz back here. He's going to go up there. And then we're going to bring on Hudson-Odoi on the right-hand side. Just do those 3 changes for now. I think, rather than playing Havertz in central midfield, we will do this as well. And just, it's not ideal to come away from the system that is working, but Bellingham's better in centre mid. Havertz is better as an attacking mid. We'll shift to this, and it'll be fine. What's the worst that could happen? Mount is on. Is he going to be the Champions League final hero from the bench for the 2nd year in a row? Reece James with the in-swinging corner, aiming for that. He was aiming for the near post, actually gone far post. Either way, it doesn't find a Chelsea play, but Hudson-Odoi does have the scraps, the remnants, but Courtois is there to collect the ball. Apparently, I'm not supposed to say he was a Chelsea reject. I'm reading from something presented to me by my lawyers. He did play several seasons as Chelsea's first Tories goalkeeper, won the Premier League multiple times, and then he decided to leave. He's the bad man. Chelsea are not the bad men. Will Chelsea fans calm down now? Probably not. I am about to sack John Terry, who's in the club as a youth coach, because I don't really like him. So we'll balance that out. If the Chelsea fans have forgiven me, we'll do that to just balance it all out nicely. Right, Reece James needs to come off now. Pavard is going to come on for him as he is tired. And Kai Havertz, I think, is the next man to come off. And I'm looking at Tammy Abraham thinking we're going to go 2 up top because Tammy Abraham has been fantastic. And it's time to give him the opportunity. It's a big risk making a change like this when it's still 0-0. But probably should have brought Tammy on when we brought Calvert-Lewin on. Tammy needs his opportunity. So Tammy Abraham is on. It's a 4-2-4 for the final 10 minutes. We can go to something more sensible for extra time if we make it that far. but we may as well try and win this thing in normal time. Or, you know what? We won it last year. We can take a little risk trying to win it in normal time. Fofana playing it back to Mendy, who finds Kante and now Bellingham in central midfield. Struggled to nail down a regular starting spot this season, but has been in the team towards the end of the year, trying to get something going with Tammy Abraham, but unfortunately not able to. Who is that? Who is that? Who's our number 19? Just trudging around the pitch. That's brilliant from Kante. That's his final contribution in a Chelsea shirt. It's very welcome. And I thought Mount was going to do it for the second year in a row. Mason Mount is number 19. So he was both on the pitch and trudging around the pitch. Mason Mount, there's two of him. Kante winning the ball back in midfield again. Finds Calvert-Lewin. That's surely over the line. Oh, my word. That looked like Courtois had carried that over the line. Kante, he knows this is his final hurrah in a Chelsea shirt, and he is trying to make himself the hero of this Champions League final and very nearly able to do it there. And it's now with Kante again in midfield, and Pavard at right back skips past Vinicius, and Hudson-Odoi in a crossing position. He's got Abraham and Calvert-Lewin in the middle. Can't find either of them, but another of the players who has this relationship with both clubs. Rudiger gets it clear. It ends up with Benzema, and it's snuck under Mendy. And the gamble to go to the 4-2-4 might not be paying off, because we now find ourselves with less than 10 minutes to go. It's a late single goal in a Champions League final again, but this year it might just be Real Madrid who get the luck go their way. Next year is going to be the decider, unless we can drag ourselves back into the game. We've gone attacking. We've got no more substitutions to use. What I might do is just tell Bellingham to be a playmaker, because we didn't have one in the team. Bellingham can play that role now and try and create something from central midfield. He plays it forward to Mount, who does well to let Calvert-Lewin free on goal, and Courtois is there to make the save. But we do have a corner. Still 5 minutes to go in this game, more than 5 minutes, and it's Mount who must have hit a poor corner because nothing happened, just kind of stopped. And I don't think we're going to get back into this game because the highlights have all just stopped. Well, that's sad, isn't it? I really enjoyed this animation last year. We've ended up with just 5 of the 6, boys and girls. Maybe we shouldn't have gone to the 4-2-4. Maybe we should have been a little bit more patient. We could have thrown Tammy Abraham on in extra time. There'll be questions asked. We've planted the seed now with the Chelsea board that I don't know what I'm doing, and they'll sack me now. They don't usually leave it as long as a year to sack a manager after winning the Champions League, so I'm already on borrowed time. But hopefully we have enough time borrowed to be able to at least go through the new style Champions League group stage, which we'll be doing for the rest of this week. Once we get through the transfer window, which will be tomorrow. And I don't think I've been given my budget yet. Calvert-Lewin, very upset with him. Are we going to get a budget in here somewhere? Maybe I've had the budget and didn't notice it. We're going to have a lovely old summer tomorrow. If you've enjoyed that, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.